Hi, this is your host, Jeff Ragavin, and you're listening to Marketing Mix, where we hear from some of the most influential CMOs of today to discuss the strategies of tomorrow. Welcome to Marketing Mix. Super excited. We have a great guest today, Eric Edge, who's the SVP of Brand and Communications from Postmates. Eric, it's always a pleasure.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. Great to be here.
Lots of stuff going on. You've been super busy at Postmates. For those of you who are listening in, Eric has had a pretty amazing career. He recently came from Pinterest. He was the head of global marketing and also had some incredible jobs over at Instagram and Facebook. So he comes to Postmates with a plethora of amazing marketing strategies. So Eric, how's it been since you've been over there?
Well, first, thanks for the amazing shout out. It's been great. The move over to Postmates has been amazing. You know, one of the things that really stood out to me when I was thinking about making the jump from Pinterest over to Postmates was the brand and the brand that was built in this space. And to be honest, finding a company that has built a brand as strong as Postmates has in tech is not something that you find often. And so it was something that I was really excited about. And it's been going great. You know, if you look at the past 8 months since I've been here, we've just been on an amazing growth streak. The momentum's been amazing. You know, the business has grown, our customer base has grown. We've just expanded into 1,000 more cities. There's so much going on that it's just a fun place to be.
Postmates has really become a household name. And, you know, you guys have been doing a ton of very interesting marketing. Most recent commercials, especially on YouTube, with some celebrities. I know you featured Iggy Azalea and, you know, some other celebrities, but what was the rationale about that type of strategy?
Yeah, I'd have to start at the beginning, which is really about how Postmates has become such a lifestyle brand and, to your point, has really become a verb in pop culture. And that wasn't always the case. If you think back, 6 or 7 years ago when we were founded, one of the things that went really well for us, that was really smart for us to do, was to focus in on LA. LA is the largest food market outside of New York, and LA didn't have the access to delivery, on-demand delivery, like a city like New York did. You know, you had maybe a one pizza place and then maybe, one other local restaurant in your neighborhood, and that was it. And you had to be within a certain radius, if you remember those days, of hoping you were in a delivery zone. And if you think about LA, there are so many great restaurants spread out across so many great neighborhoods, and people just didn't have access to those unless they were going to hop in their car, drive, and either eat in a restaurant or pick it up. And very early on, we identified that as a massive opportunity and a city that had such high consumer demand for an on-demand product, but no solution to it. And so early on, we focused in on LA, and fast forward to today. And what you find is that not only have we become part of pop culture, but we've also become part of celebrity and influencer culture as well. And the reason is because, these celebrities or these influencers actually use our platform. So one you talked about the campaigns that we've done and just celebrity interaction with that. What's really interesting is it's natural to our brand, right? It's not something you can just buy your way into. And you see that all the time when you look at celebrity partnerships or spokespeople, that brands try to buy their way in. And for us, it's inherently core to who we are. So we have this series called The Receipt that sort of lives on Instagram. You can find it on our blog. And it's us partnering up with some amazing celebrities and influencers to tell their stories about what it is that they use Postmates for and unveil their order history with their permission, of course, and talk about what it is that they do. So we've done that with Kylie Jenner, Post Malone, John Legend. And, that only could happen because inherently they're using the platform and they're using it a lot for a lot of different things. And so when you think about us taking an approach like that, it just makes sense that when we think about our advertising strategy, that is an integral part to what we do.
Yeah. And I think, one thing that has really worked in the advantage too, of your business and actually our business as well is, the blooming gig economy, essentially at scale, right? And we've seen that especially in the tech industry. But, when we're talking about on-demand delivery and transportation, there's been such a huge increase in jobs. So what do you think are some of the main factors that have enabled this to really blow up?
You and I have talked about this before. I think the key driver more so than anything else is the access to flexibility.
Yeah.
People today want to have flexibility in how they work, when they work, and what it is that they're doing. And they want to do it in a way that is still meaningful and that they can still earn a decent living on. And so, when you look at our fleet, that's the key driver, right? That's why they want to have the flexible work environment that they do. And so I think that's the key driver that we see across the board. You guys see it all the time with creators and your world. People want to be able to do the things that they love to do on their own terms and with their own flexibility. And that transcends a bunch of different categories and industries.
Yeah, I think it's also interesting with your background so focused on, social platforms, right? So Instagram and Facebook and Pinterest. I think the rise of these workers in the gig economy world is also because of social, bringing everybody together. And where do we go from here? Is everything going to be in this new realm of, hey, I need somebody, but there's an app for it, right?
Yeah, I think where we're seeing the world going, and this is beyond just Postmates or our category, but where the world is going is to a place where brands and businesses have direct access to the customer and the consumer, and they can do things much faster, be much more agile in everything that they do than they were before. And it sounds a little bit obvious because of the day-to-day life that we all lead, and we're right in the thick of it. But if you think about categories, some of the biggest brands in the world, CPG brands in the world, which traditionally are slower movers because of everything from, product development to product market fit to their marketing strategies, it's a long-term game when you think of something like CPG. And yet at the same time, you see disruptors in that space and challenger brands who are able to bring a product to the consumer much quicker than they ever could before. And social's a big part of that. Mobile's a huge part of that. But just an access to information and an access to anything that you want on demand is really interesting, right? That plays really well for us as a brand and a provider of the on-demand service. But actually, it plays really well for many categories.
So I think, switching over just from like this digital world, one thing that you guys have done in the last year, and I think you've done a pretty stellar job, is, you had all these great billboards all over the place. They were kind of fun and kitschy. You had when you're vegan, but you're drunk, carnitas tacos, we get it, right? And, there was a ton of those. Are billboards actually, are they making a comeback? Did they work really well for you guys? It's super interesting to see a lot of digital companies going to more traditional forms of advertising.
Yeah, my thinking on media overall is this. There are so many benefits across any one channel, but no one channel is going to be the key driver for your business. And so I may be the only person saying, TV actually isn't dead. There's still a lot that happens there, and video is still very much alive. If you think of outdoor and print, look, outdoor is still something that you see when you are walking through your city or driving through your city. It's still something that allows you to keep a brand top of mind. When you're driving, you're not on your phone. And when you're driving down the road and you look up and you see a beautiful piece of eye-catching creative from Postmates, hopefully we kind of sit in your brain there, so that when you go to order lunch or when you're on your way home and you think about what am I going to do for dinner, you say, what, I could just Postmate it. So I do think that there's a very real place for outdoor, but what I would say is that no one media is going to win the game. I think that our medium is going to win the game. I think that outdoor is one piece of it, but you really still have to have an integrated approach that brings in digital and video and outdoor. But we love it. I think a lot of what we've done and how we've thought about the brand and how we've brought it to life creatively, as you can see in our latest campaign that just launched, is really lends itself to big format outdoor advertising. It just looks beautiful.
How integrated are your campaigns? So for instance, are you running the billboard copy targeted to vegans across different platforms? Or do you have, let's just say, different campaign strategies for each channel?
Yeah, the goal is, and what I would love to be in a place to say is that it is truly integrated, and what you're talking about is personalized. The more that we can create personalized marketing at scale that is truly integrated, the better off we'll be. And so as much as humanly possible, what we do is we'll create a whole set of assets beautiful assets that you see out today on the out of home that's running. And then we should look at those and say, what asset would play well with which segment? And let's make sure that our digital strategy segments them in the right way, because you have the flexibility to do that when it comes to digital. So I would love to say that we have this core set of assets and that we do that. And we do in many instances. I think we can always get better at that. The more integrated and personalized the campaign is, the more it's going to resonate with you and the more it's going to hit home.
And your brand itself has a super fun, vibrant personality. Is there anything that you could maybe give some of the listeners who are leading marketing at larger brands to any type of advice, if they want to be a little more provocative but don't want to offend anybody? Is there any advice you can give them?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I talk to my team about this all the time. And there is a very fine line between being provocative and maybe being a little bit risky in the tone and the voice that you have, and just being totally inappropriate. And it's a fine line. And what's crazy about it is there's no formula that you can follow that will spit out on the other end like that right piece of copy or that right piece of creative. It has to be something that you inherently bake into your brand. And so what I would say on that is, and I use this word with my team all the time, is it needs to be clever. Clever, the word, is very, very different than it needs to be irreverent, for example. And there are some brands out there that, want to be irreverent, and it works really well for who they are, but they've built their brand on being an irreverent brand. They have an irreverent tone. They create irreverent creative, and that's just who they are. For us, it's less about being irreverent and just having a really smart pulse on what's important to consumers today, understanding those key seasonal moments or those key cultural moments that are happening, and being a part of those and playing really well into those. And then bridging that with our core brand attributes and brand assets when it comes to our tone and our voice. And I think every brand should go through that process of thinking through what that means, what they want the output to be, what their brand truths are, right? You mentioned celebrity earlier. That's a truth that we have. We know we can be a part of that conversation. If we were another brand, even in our space, that's going to be really hard to do. And so I think when you start to combine all of that together, you get to this just core truth about who you are as a brand. And then you really play that up. And you may be a brand like ours that can just be super clever and super creative. You might not be, right? You might not be a brand that works, but maybe humor works well for you. Or maybe, a totally new approach to creative is something that will stand out for your brand. But you really have to get to that core truth.
Switching it over to you personally, working for a company like this, I'm just curious, what's your favorite thing to order on Postmates?
That's a great question.
People are dying to know, Eric.
Oh my gosh, it changes all the time. So it depends where I'm at. I love ordering sugarfish. You and I talked about that, I think, the last time I saw you. We both were talking about sugarfish. So that's one of my favorites.
Now I want it now.
So good.
Especially when it comes all beautiful in the box, with all the compartments and everything.
Well, that's part of it, right? For sugarfish, quality is so important for them. And for them to be able to trust us in delivering from their store to the customer and making sure that quality and the beautiful presentation and the freshness all still exist is, that's really important to us. And I love ordering it. I was at my hotel in New York. I was in New York a few weeks ago, and I time it out. So I'm on my way from the airport to the hotel. It says I have about 30 minutes. So I go on to Postmates, order sugarfish, and just as I'm getting in, the Postmates is pulling up to the hotel.
So good. So good. I wonder, when you're thinking about Postmates, I had a situation where I came back from a trip and I left my dog's leash. And I needed to take the dog out. And I literally used Postmates to get somebody to go to Petco and get me a leash, because I obviously couldn't leave on the streets without a leash.
Yeah.
That totally saved me. It's not just food, right? It is literally anything really you want, right? It's definitely, it saved me many times.
Well, that's it. It's food is a big entry point, because you have 21 occasions a week to use Postmates for food, but there's a lot of other times when you want to have access to whatever it is that you want, and you want that on demand, or you need that on demand. And that's the amazing thing about the platform that we've built, is that you could go into the platform and do that. right? You need a dog leash? Sure. You need medicine for the kids? Great. You need milk because it's late at night and you realize that you can't make coffee in the morning without your milk? Well, you could get that too. And I think it's just understanding that you now have access to whatever it is that you want at your fingertips is transforming the way that you think about commerce, about shopping, and about eating.
Awesome. So Eric, one quick question, we call the show Marketing Mix because we're talking about all sorts of marketing, but we also mix it with some questions in everyday life. So I have a question for you. What's something, your brain tries to make you do and you have to literally will yourself not to do it?
Oh, if you could be inside my brain. My brain tries to make me distract me to do anything possible besides what's in front of me. I have the most ADD brain out there where I'm looking at one thing and then I'm also processing 10 other things around me. And I think there's so much greatness in there and fun, but it's a creative process. It's focusing in on what's in front of me. And while I'm doing that, looking up for a second and saying, oh, that's interesting. I didn't think of X. Or I'm looking across the office and I just saw someone has a shirt on that is this color. And you know what? That could be a really interesting color to use in our next set of out of home. It's those kind of things that just spark creative thinking. And, there's some times when that's great and other times when I need to focus in back to the recap I'm writing for a campaign we did or something.
So one last question before we go. I know we've got a hard stop. You guys have done a ton of campaigns to date. Is there anyone in particular that stands out to you, like personally, as your favorite campaign to date?
Well, I'm biased because I've been here for 8 months now, and I was behind the wheel at creating the one we just launched. So I love the campaign that we just launched. I think it's a lot of fun. If you look at both the copy, so one of my favorite pieces of copy is when you need bolognese to pair with a nice red sweatpant, Postmates, right? That's probably my favorite piece of copy that we have running right now. You pair that with just the beautiful and somewhat eye-grabbing and thumb-stopping imagery that you see of food inside the phone. You combine those two things together, and I just think it's brilliant. I think it's done really well, and I'm really proud of the team, both my team, our agency at Mother LA, in pulling together such a smart concept.
So good. Well, listen, you guys keep crushing it, and we'll keep ordering.
All right, let's keep doing that, please.
So great having you on the show. It's, again, always a pleasure. I'm going to see you, I think, in like a week in New York, Social Media Week.
Yes, can't wait.
Awesome. Thanks, Eric.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you for tuning in to Marketing Mix. We hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Be sure to share and subscribe. Until next time, take care.